Adventure, danger, and one man's obsession with history, Raiders of the Lost Ark isn't just a movie, it's a cinematic roller coaster. From deadly traps to terrifying snakes, from daring escapes to face-melting ancient power, Indiana Jones redefined action heroes forever. Today, we're diving into 20 reasons Raiders of the Lost Ark still looks like a billion-dollar blockbuster. Some of them almost killed Harrison Ford. Number 1. The Boulder was barely going to be in the film. We all know that image. Indy running, sweat dripping, a giant boulder chasing him. Iconic, right? But fact is, the boulder almost didn't steal the show. Originally, it was just another obstacle for Indy to dodge. Then production designer Norman Reynolds brought the 22-foot-wide fiberglass monster on set. Spielberg freaked out, in a good way. He made the crew extend the tunnel an extra 50 feet just to film the chase. That harmless prop, credited on IMDb as Josh. Fans have parodied it endlessly, and it became one of the most famous openings in movie history. Without Reynolds showing up with that boulder, we'd probably remember Indy as that guy with the whip instead of fearing rolling rocks for the rest of our lives. Number 2. 3 teenagers remade the entire film. Imagine loving a movie so much, you decide to recreate the whole thing at age 11. That's exactly what Eric Zala, Chris Strompalos, and Jason Lamb did. No budget, no proper tape of the movie. Just props begged from birthdays, action figures, and memories. Zala got a fedora, Lamb a whip, Strompalos even begged for a boulder. Using a 600-picture storyboard, they shot scene after scene, taking 7 years to finish 95% of it. Another 25 years later, they finally filmed Indy fighting a hulking brute next to a plane propeller. Their insane dedication became Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Lost adaptation, celebrated in the documentary Raiders, the story of the greatest fan film ever made. Basically, 3 kids out-fandom the entire world. But that's not all. In Fact 11, you'll see how the charming, heroic Indy we know almost became a truly unsettling character that might have ruined the film entirely. Number 3. The spider shot only worked with a female tarantula. That unforgettable shot of Indy covered in spiders almost didn't happen. Why? Male tarantulas were too lazy to cooperate. Spielberg freaked. The scene would look fake if the spiders stayed still. The solution? A single female tarantula. Placed on the actor's back, chaos erupted instantly, spiders crawling, scampering. Alfred Molina, playing Satipo, got terror and comedy all at once. Fun fact, Molina later played Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2. Yep, spiders seem to follow him in life and cinema. Thanks to one motivated lady tarantula, the scene became unforgettable, terrifying viewers for decades, and proving that sometimes the right co-star makes all the difference. Number 4. The film was rejected repeatedly. You'd think Spielberg plus Lucas equals instant blockbuster, right? Wrong. Raiders was rejected by almost every major studio. Why? The $18 million budget, exotic locations, and dangerous stunts scared them off. Lucas demanded full merchandise rights and total control over sequels. No compromise. Studios remembered his Star Wars deal and said, no thanks. But Paramount finally bit, green-lighting production. And guess what? The movie grossed $390 million, the biggest hit of the year. Lesson: even the most successful directors get told no until someone finally says yes. Imagine if they had listened. No rolling boulders, no snake scares, and probably no Indy fedora envy. Number 5. The ghost was played by George Lucas's receptionist. The Ark's terrifying spirits weren't CGI, they were man-made proper. Miniatures, puppets, mannequins, and slow-mo underwater filming created most shots. But Spielberg wanted one ghost face clear enough to be creepy. Who stepped in? George Lucas's receptionist. Yep, the person who answers phones at ILM became a supernatural apparition. They filmed her in a silk robe, spun her in front of a blue screen, reversed the motion to look unnatural, and composited her face onto a skull model. The result? One of the most unsettling moments in cinema, born from a receptionist and some old-school movie magic. It proves that sometimes the scariest thing in a blockbuster is HR. But that's just a starter. In Fact 15, you'll see how another scene in Raiders became unexpectedly hilarious because Harrison Ford improvised due to dysentery. Number 6. The villain was meant to be a Nazi cyborg. Arnold Ernst Todt is one of cinema's creepiest villains, but he almost went full sci-fi nightmare. The original plan? Todt would have a mechanical arm that transforms into a machine gun and a radio antenna sticking out of his head. Spielberg scrapped the idea for the first film, but he didn't forget it. Indy would finally face a Nazi cyborg in a 2009 novel. Ronald Lacey's 16 lines are unforgettable, but imagine him as a steampunk terror tearing through temples. Harrison Ford even fought a man with a mechanical arm in The Fugitive, almost as if the universe was testing him. Todt proved you don't need gadgets to terrify an audience, but the Lost Cyborg version remains one of Hollywood's wildest what-ifs. Number 7. The inspiration for Indy's name. Indiana Jones wasn't always Indiana Jones. George Lucas originally called him Indiana Smith. Spielberg protested because he worried people would compare him to Nevada Smith. They eventually settled on Jones. Why Indiana? That was the name of Lucas's Alaskan Malamute dog. Yes, the same dog that also inspired Chewbacca. This little mutt shaped two of cinema's most iconic characters. The joke made it into the third film when Sean Connery's Henry Jones tells Sala that Indy is nicknamed after their dog. Lucas's canine-influenced adventure, Star Wars, and the very essence of Indy's character. So every time Indy swings a whip or dives for a boulder, remember, a dog made it possible. Number 8. Why did it have to be lizards? The Well of Souls is filled with snakes, but most aren't snakes. Spielberg wanted more movement, so he added water hoses, then legless lizards to mimic serpents. These reptiles had eyelids, ear holes, and a slightly higher IQ than hoses. A few real snakes were in the scene, including a venomous cobra placed behind glass to protect Ford. One actually bit a crew member, proving Indy's danger was real. This mix of real snakes and sneaky lizards made the sequence both terrifying and hilarious. Every slither you see was carefully planned, showing Spielberg's obsession with realism. So when Indy recoils in horror, it's partly fear, partly the filmmaker's clever trickery. And speaking of clever filmmaking, Fact 18 shows how Indy's fedora was another small detail that hid secrets and kept the magic alive. Number 9. A lot of effort was put into Indy's whip. The whip isn't just a prop, it's a weapon, a poster, and an icon. Spielberg insisted on a bullwhip for style over practicality. David Morgan crafted it from resilient kip hide, not kangaroo, and made 30 spares because Ford kept tearing them during practice. Indy's whip length changed per scene. 6 feet for tricky stunts, 8 feet for normal fights, even 18 feet to swing across gaps. Each crack, each swing was meticulously planned to look effortless on screen. Harrison Ford's repeated practice made it iconic, and the original whip sold for $43,000 at auction. Spielberg's obsession with a simple weapon paid off. The whip became as recognizable as Indy's fedora. Number 10. Star Wars connections. George Lucas couldn't resist sneaking in Easter eggs. Look closely and the Well of Souls and the glyphs on the pillar resemble R2-D2 and C-3PO. Jock's plane in the opening even has OBCP-0, a nod to Obi-Wan and C-3PO. Fans spotted these, but it goes deeper. In the Clone Wars, Twi'leks carry the Ark. The cargo number 9906753 from the end appears in Han's freighter in The Force Awakens. Even Jar Jar Binks gets the staff of Raw Medallion in an episode. Raiders is basically Star Wars undercover. Lucas's references tie two universes together, proving he's never not thinking about Easter eggs, and that even Indiana Jones is living in a galaxy far, far away. Before we jump back into the wildest behind-the-scenes stories, let's hear from you. Which of these insane facts blew your mind the most so far? Was it the spider scene or how mind-wobbling Indy's whip was? Comment below and let the debate begin. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a deep dive into the craziest secrets of your favorite movies. Trust me, you'll want to stick around. Things only get weirder from here. Number 11. Indiana Jones was originally much creepier. Remember those obsessive fans from Fact 2? Well, Indy himself almost caused a similar level of shock. Indy, as we know him, is charming, adventurous, and brave, but he almost started the film as a full-on creepy archaeologist. Early scripts suggested he slept with his students, particularly a girl named Susan. It gets worse. Spielberg wanted Marion to have had an affair with Indy when she was just 16. Thankfully, Lucas pushed back, saving Harrison Ford's reputation and making Indy a hero instead of a nightmare. Imagine the opening lecture with "Love You" written on eyelids turning into scandalous flashbacks. Thanks to Lucas, we got the Indiana Jones everyone loves, not a horror story disguised as an adventure movie. The character we celebrate was just one conversation away from being truly unsettling. Number 12. The airplane propeller scene was a nightmare to shoot. The famous plane fight scene almost became infamous for all the wrong reasons. Harrison Ford tore ligaments when the plane ran over his knee, proving stunts are never painless. Meanwhile, a second mishap made everyone cry. From spice to fake blood in one shot, the stunt coordinator used cayenne pepper mist. Actors got it in their eyes. Pain, pure pain. And most viewers barely notice it, meaning all that suffering was for invisible red mist. Indy barely flinches on screen, but off camera? Agony. This is filmmaking dedication at its finest or its cruelest, depending on how much sympathy you feel for Ford and co. Every punch, stumble, and dodge was physically punishing, which makes the scene's effortless charm on screen even more impressive. Number 13. How do you get a monkey to salute? George Lucas insisted on a spy monkey villain, which Spielberg wisely embraced but dressed down. The result? A monkey performing the Nazi salute. How did they teach it? Simple. A grape on a fishing pole. The animal wrangler dangled it out of frame, and the monkey complied. Genius or madness, it worked. The absurdity is perfect. A tiny primate defying logic while saluting the Third Reich. Spielberg later dodged similar questionable ideas like fridge hiding in Crystal Skull, so maybe he's used to chaos. The salute is funny, ridiculous, and slightly terrifying when you remember a real monkey is obeying directions. It proves Raiders of the Lost Ark is full of practical effects, clever wranglers, and weird decisions that somehow became cinematic gold. Number 14. Raiders was heavily based on a forgotten Charlton Heston film. Raiders didn't spring from thin air. It borrowed heavily from the 1954 film Secret of the Incas starring Charlton Heston as Harry Steele. Every detail was lifted. The fedora, jacket, stubble, even the way Indy tips his hat while sleeping. The iconic scene where Indy uses the staff of Ra to pinpoint the Ark's location mirrors Heston's reflector-on-map sequence. Costume designer Deborah Nadoolman-Landis studied the film obsessively to recreate the look. Spielberg and Lucas never officially credited it, but fans can see the homage. Essentially, Indy's wardrobe and hero moves are a loving copy of Heston's adventure style. Raiders is a reboot before reboots were cool, proving even legendary blockbusters sometimes borrow from forgotten classics to become immortal. Number 15. The sword fight played out differently. Remember that creepy receptionist from Fact 5? While some Ark horrors were made by ILM, the Market Swordsman scene almost went a completely different direction. The famous Market Swordsman scene was meant to be a whip duel. Harrison Ford had dysentery, filming in the blazing Tunisian sun and rushing to the bathroom every 10 minutes. Spielberg panicked, worried about losing a week of shooting. Ford solved it by saying, "Just shoot the sucker." Spielberg agreed, and the result is comedy gold. Indy nonchalantly draws his gun and ends the fight instantly. The original stunt performer, Terry Richards, who also played the Wampa in Empire Strikes Back, was frustrated after weeks of choreography went unused. The improvisation made the scene hilarious, efficient, and iconic. Number 16. Steven Spielberg forgot one important prop. You'd think a submarine would be hard to forget when shooting a scene. But Spielberg did it. He was so focused on the interior that he didn't hire an actual sub for the exterior shots. Lucky for him, the Das Boot crew was filming nearby. Spielberg politely borrowed their sub. Everything went smoothly, right? Not quite. After filming, the sub broke in half and sank. The Das Boot team salvaged what they could to finish their movie, leaving Spielberg's borrowed sub floating in infamy. The moral: never lend a submarine to a director, no matter how polite he seems. Despite this, the shots made it into Raiders, and the scene looks seamless. Spielberg's oversight turned into a stroke of luck, giving the film its unforgettable underwater action sequence. Number 17. How did Indy know not to look inside the Ark? The ending is legendary, but how did Indy know to shut his eyes and survive? Fans have asked this forever. The answer was in a deleted scene. Indy and Sala meet a monk who translates the medallion inscriptions from the Staff of Ra. The monk warns them not to touch or witness the Ark's contents. This little moment explains everything, but it was cut for mystery. Without it, Indy's survival seems almost magical. The deleted scene would have clarified the wisdom behind his actions while preserving the tension. Special effects and terrifying spirits stole the spotlight, but Indy's cleverness was quietly guided by an ancient warning. This small plot detail shows how careful planning and world-building made the Ark's power believable and why subtlety sometimes beats exposition. Number 18. Indy's hat was more important than you would imagine. Remember the clever lizard trick in Fact 8? Spielberg loved small but brilliant solutions, and Indy's fedora is one of the best. It's just a hat, right? Wrong. Indy's fedora was a critical tool in filmmaking. Spielberg decided early that the brim would hide stunt doubles' faces during dangerous sequences. Harrison Ford did most stunts, but some required professionals. The brim ensured seamless action shots while keeping the actor safe. Even when Indy gets tossed, dragged, or hurled through chaos, the hat stays perfectly on his head. It became a visual cue of continuity and identity. Stuntman Terry Leonard, thrilled to perform dangerous sequences, benefited from the clever design. The fedora wasn't just stylish, it was a shield, a storytelling device, and an essential part of making Indy believable in life-threatening stunts. Without it, every high-octane scene would risk exposing doubles and ruining the illusion. Number 19. The film could have turned out very differently. Tom Selleck almost became Indiana Jones, but that was just one of hundreds of changes considered. Spielberg, Lucas, and screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan spent 5 9-hour sessions brainstorming. Indy was almost a martial artist using kung fu, almost had a llama scene, and even had sequences later recycled for Temple of Doom. The creative discussions are preserved in a 125-page transcript showing wild ideas and playful chaos. The final film is a curated masterpiece from a storm of alternatives. Each choice, casting, action sequences, props, and character traits was debated, discarded, or repurposed. Without these conversations, Indy could have been unrecognizable. The process shows how collaboration, experimentation, and restraint shaped one of cinema's most beloved adventure heroes. Raiders might have existed, but it wouldn't have been the iconic legend we celebrate today. Number 20. The real reason Indiana Jones was made. George Lucas released Star Wars in 1977 and expected it to flop. He told Spielberg to take a vacation, but instead they brainstormed a new project, an homage to 1940s adventure serials. Spielberg wanted to make a Bond-level hero but was constantly denied. Lucas's idea gave him the perfect excuse. 4 years later, Raiders of the Lost Ark hit theaters. It's ironic that Sean Connery, famous for James Bond, later played Indy's father. Essentially, Indiana Jones was created so Spielberg could live out a fantasy the studios wouldn't fund, and Lucas could hedge against a Star Wars flop. A blockbuster was born from friendship, ambition, and a tiny bit of spite. Without that moment in Hawaii, Indy might never have swung into our imaginations. Adventure history was written because two filmmakers wanted more than what Hollywood offered. Bonus fact: real skeletons were used in the snake pit. When Indy drops into the Well of Souls, you can spot skeletons scattered among the snakes. Those aren't all props. The production actually used real human skeletons rented from a medical supply company. Fake skeletons at the time looked too stiff and plasticky on camera, so the crew mixed in real ones to give the scene an unsettling realism. If those skulls gave you the creeps, it's because they were the real thing. And that's a wrap on Raiders of the Lost Ark. From boulders with names to haunted props and spy monkeys, this film was pure chaos behind the camera. If you loved these insane secrets, check out our video Star Wars, 20 Weird Facts You Never Knew, to dive into more outrageous behind-the-scenes madness. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with fellow adventure fans. Next time you watch Raiders, every stunt, prop, and absurd idea will feel even crazier. Adventure isn't just on screen, it's in the making, and now you've seen it all.
Wow, that was weird.